the sight, my love. How could I've known it'd be you, my love? And though time flies, I still cry and sit quietly waiting for you.
Normally when I make these sort of commentaries or video blogs, I have something to correspond with it, you know, a solid foundation. But I find myself in a situation where I'm a little bit confused, and it seems that conditions have been pushing myself to this concept. So this is really the first time that I've tried to really just express it off the top of my head, and I guess it comes down to questions like feminism and its influence. How far does it reach globally? But more than that, how much of what we consider to be feminism, or under the label of feminism, how much of it can actually be accredited to the actual movement of feminism? I mean, feminism as an ideology, well, I suppose in the more modern, broader sense, is that women are oppressed, men are the oppressors. And that's a real simple way to try and define it. But there's still ideas that, you know, it began with a concept of making women equal to men. But even that concept is ridiculous. Women are not equal to men. You can't make an apple equal to an orange. You can enjoy the taste of an apple, and you can enjoy the taste of an orange. And you can find difficulties, conflicts, or privileges and benefits or disadvantages to both. An apple you don't have to peel, right? You can just bite right into it. An orange you do have to peel, but it tends to be, well, more sweet, maybe perhaps more sour. Its texture is different. In other words, in regards to gender differences and sex differences, there are benefits and detriments to both. So it's not something that really needs to be ideologized, if that's a word. It doesn't need to be. But anyway, my concept, or my idea that brought me here, is that I'm living in a Southeast Asian country, Indonesia, and feminism as a political ideology has not grasped the collective mindset of the people here. Not yet. Now, I would say that it is making an attempt, and that attempt is usually being made, in my opinion, in my own observations, is made through the United Nations and their non-government organizations, family planning, etc. They are trying to kind of, you know, sway the minds of the population over to feminist ideology here. I do believe it exists. But it certainly hasn't captured it. And what is feminist fighting here that makes it so difficult? I mean, in this day and age when it's so popular in the West. And I think it has to do with culture. But the funny thing is like, where does feminist ideology stop and culture norms begin? Where does it stop and start, both those concepts? Because if we threw feminism out completely and pretended it never existed, would there still be conflict between the genders based on culture alone? And I think there would be. I think, yes, there would be. And we have to consider, if that's true, where do they come from? Are they still necessary today? If there are laws written around these cultural differences, these cultural concepts of gender differences, should they be revised? And I'm going to attempt to try and clarify what I mean through personal experience, okay? And I'm not trying to make an argument based on my personal experience. I'm just trying to throw out an idea. But again, I was born in Los Angeles, California, to a father who was an American citizen who had roots in Central America, and my mother was Canadian. As a small child, I moved up to Canada. I eventually got Canadian citizenship. I'm North American, I mean, through and through. However, approximately 10 to 11 years ago, through my travels, I discovered this country, Indonesia, and it sort of took a hold on me in a way I never expected. To make the long story short, I've been here for, oh God, about 11 years. Almost 11 years, yeah, give or take. It's about that. And in that time, I've been a passive, fly-on-the-wall traveler, just taking in the differences, taking in a culture, a climate, a society. I've also been an active member of that society as a working employee. I've been a part of its cultural scene, musically, being involved in music here, and even being involved with people who are themselves involved with local cultural art, such as Indonesian dance styles, and etc. Anyway, I've really dug myself into this place. But on top of all of that, I've also married a local woman. She therefore gave birth to my son, and 5 years later left me, and it ended in divorce. So I think it's safe to say that I have a pretty good concept of this culture, which is very, very, very different than Western culture. Incredibly different, and I actually blame that difference on one of the reasons why my marriage failed. However, that's another story. But I am very well acquainted with it, and it is a culture where feminism does not really exist. It's not there. It doesn't have its claws dug in. I've had conversations, and this is recently, because I've obviously become interested in concepts of feminism since my divorce and subsequent battles to be with my child. But I have talked to Indonesian women, normal Indonesian women, from city, from village, from all around, and I've tried to relay concepts of Western feminism to them. And I tried to do it in my first language, which is English, and I've also tried to relay it to them in their own language, which is Indonesian. And I have not once had the experience of a single woman here, whether she be single, young, old, married, divorced, agree with the Western feminist concepts. In fact, 100% of them have said that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. But again, that's just my personal space, the people that I speak to on a daily basis. Okay, don't take that as that's the way everybody thinks. But I did find it interesting that not only was the concepts of feminism that I shared with these women, married, single, divorced, young, old, not only were they rejected, but they were laughed at. Let me try to quickly think of an example off the top of my head. Trying to explain to a married woman with 2 or 3 children who I work with that a woman in America, say, can ask for a divorce, no-fault divorce, get the divorce, and by law keep the father away from the children, while at the same time having unlimited access to his money. And I even went so far as to say that a woman can easily, in the Western world, make a false claim of abuse, whether physical or sexual, and the man can be taken away and arrested without any evidence, and then they'll sort it out later. Now that was laughable to them. They couldn't understand it. It was unbelievable. And the people here are very, I would say conservative, religious, old school, if you want to put it that way. But that was like unbelievable. They couldn't believe it. It actually frightened them a little bit. So that's just an example of my own experience of being here. But the point of what I'm trying to say is that where does feminism end and culture begin? Because if you remember earlier, I said I was divorced here. Now, when I was divorced, what happened was my wife. I'll try to make it a short story, but I took my wife to Canada. It was temporary. We didn't have a plan on staying indefinitely. It was just a plan of let's go see what happens. She had a 6-month visa. I brought my 2-year-old son. It was a wonderful experience. But the culture shock for her was more than she could handle. And immediately wanted to go home. I mean, it was cold. It was in the winter, cold. She didn't understand Western culture and the way that the families presented each other. And I can understand that because I had the same difficulties when I started living here. All right? So in the end, she decided she wanted to go back. However, at that time, I had recently signed a contract to do work, which was a 6-month contract, in hopes that I could extend it if need be. And she left about, 2 months into our stay, and I received the contract, either days before she left or days after. It was just horrible timing. And when she said she wanted to go back, I, as a good Western male, bowed and said, yes, go back. I will take care of you. I'll send you money. Now, as I worked, 2 months more passed, and being away from my son and my wife was very, very difficult, but I made the best of it. I tried to do what I could. And 2 months later, she sent me a very, very, very long email saying, basically, I want to divorce you, and these are the reasons why. So in other words, I had introduced her to a different culture, her and my son. She did not like it and left with my permission, although I could have said, no, you are not allowed to go. I could have said that, but I didn't. And 2 months later, she's telling me that she wants a divorce, and it was long and convoluted. It was asinine. Now, this woman was not a feminist. She was educated, but she was not educated in the West, and she didn't understand concepts of feminism. And even till this day, I really don't think she does. But in her mind, she was unhappy. The situation was inappropriate to how she felt and to what she felt benefited herself, and so she decided that she'll take it upon herself to just throw it to the side and start again. And you know what? Go ahead and do that. You made a mistake. Throw it away. But the problem is it's not just your mistake, because you had a child with me. And that's where the difficulty came in, because I love my child, and I'll do anything for my child. Yet her idea was to not just throw away our marriage. No, that wasn't good enough for her. It was, I'm going to throw away our marriage, and I'm also going to throw away any opportunity for you to be with your son. Now that's a deal breaker, my friends. It's an absolute deal breaker. You cannot get away with that, and you cannot do that. Now that sounds like a feminist tactic, but believe you me, this is beyond feminism. The culture of man-women relationships especially when it comes to not the ownership, the custody of children, and the roles that a man plays and a woman plays within a marriage and within society and within child rearing. Those things are older than the hills. They are older than feminism. Much, much, much older. And in my digging, I could see that it was clearly evident even in the religious culture of this place, which is predominantly Muslim. Culturally, here in Indonesia, they don't have feminism. Yet, the law still says that the primary caregiver should be the mother. Done. Finished. I spoke to lawyers. I spoke to lawyers who said, yeah, well, Chris, good luck with getting custody of your kid. You can hope for 50-50, but pretty much any judge is just going to say, mother, child, done. And this is the God honest truth, man. All right? And this is in a country where feminism has not fucking touched. So what is the reason for this? Why do the laws favor that sort of what I call sexism or biased gender, gender bias? Because in my opinion, it shouldn't depend on whether or not you have a cunt or a dick. It should depend on your character, your ability. Should it not? I mean, is that not logical and realistic? Now, and I'm going to explore this deeper. I definitely am. I'm going to explore these cultural concepts of women being favored over men when it comes to child rearing for no other reason except that they're women. And I'm serious. I swear to God. It's the same here, people. It's the same, I'm sure, in all these other horrible countries you hear about where men are just assholes, like India and Iran, and name off 1,000 more where everywhere women are oppressed. Fuck that. Even here, where no feminism has even fucking touched down, the law will side with the woman for no other reason than that she is a woman. Even though it defies common sense. Where does this come from? I can go into that, but that's for another time. I just wanted to make you aware of that. That you can go on and bitch about how feminism as an ideology, and as a Western ideology, I mean, that's where it began, let's face it, is destroying families. No, it's beyond that. There is a cultural divide that has existed for a long, long time. And it transcends borders and oceans, and it even transcends different religions. And what it says is that a man has his role as a caretaker and provider for the woman and the child. In other words, he is the blood, the sweat, and the tears. And the woman is simply a receiver. She benefits from that blood, sweat, and tears. And part of that blood, sweat, and tears is that man's child. The woman benefits from the existence of that child. The man, if having been taken to a court of law, will not. Just to finish this off, I want to put this into perspective. When my wife left me, she had no job, no place to stay, no income. She was living at her parents' house. I had a house that I had bought. I was working. I was earning money. I was self-sufficient. Yet society said it's better for her to have the kid. And believe me, this is when he was already 2.5 years old. He wasn't suckling on the nipple anymore. In other words, her worth as someone to give the child sustenance was finished. I'm sorry, the suckling stage was over. What benefit could she give him that I could not if she had no job, no house, no income, no sustainability in her life. What good could she do? But it didn't matter. Everybody in the goddamn world around me said, she's the mom. He should be with the mom. And I was without him for 3 years. 3 years. I had to fucking suffer seeing him every other weekend, etc. And there was no law. There was no feminist law in place that said this is how it had to be. No. It was 100% cultural. And if I had have tried to even suggest him living with me, I would have been opposed at every angle. Every angle. And not because of feminism, but because of culture. And the only reason I had him for the 8 months that I did, up until recently, is because she had quit a wonderful job that she had had and put herself in a great position. She had quit it outright, walked away from it. Actually, didn't quit, just walked away. She was working at a school where my son was attending, which immediately made it impossible for my son to attend that school anymore, and put her into a position where she had no job. Again, no job, no money, no place to live, so she had no choice but to give him to me. Can you believe that? She gave him up because her irresponsibility finally caught up to her. And I had him. And even when I did have him, I was met by opposition every turn. People I worked with couldn't believe the fact that I was a single father. They said, "How can he be with you? You're not his mother." Friends of my son who went to the same school while he was with me, I met their mothers, and they all screamed, "How can he be with you? Where is his mother?" And I was dumbfounded, because I was a fucking man raising my child. And even when I said, because he's my son, and I work, and I pay for his education, and I pay for the meals that I put on his table, and he is healthy, and he is happy, what more does he need? Oh, well, he needs his mother. Well, guess what? He would have had his mother if she hadn't fucking walked away from the responsibility of a family. Anyway, I wanted to make this, and it's gone longer than it should have. Think about it. How much of feminism is political ideology, and how much of it is really ingrained in our culture? And what can we do about it? Seriously, in this modern age, what can we do about it? Just think about it. Alright, I'm out of here. I am serious. Peace. See you later. I love you, my son. I will see you as soon as possible.
I've looked into your enduring eyes, floating atop your endless smile. And if I was blind, I'd still find time to sit quietly waiting for you. Kau selalu di